kinds of magical ways. This is just raw talent coming across and using the most simple equipment, and I congratulate you from the bottom of my heart for your creativity, for your talent, and for the emotion with which you sing. You know, all of us here who are gathered for this event are from the generation of the 60s. And we all regard the 60s as a very special time. A time when the world was changing. The World War had ended in 1945, and there was still a big sort of militaristic mindset that went into the 50s. America elected a general called Eisenhower as its president. So this very kind of rigid, patriarchal society, this kind of macho man kind of dominating the social agenda kind of attitudes to life. And the 60s brought a change to all that. It made it okay for men to be gentler. It was okay to think of life in different terms. It changed people's attitudes towards sexual relationships. It changed music. The very fact that the Beatles and the Doors and Bob Dylan are being sung today, we regard, all of us, as an enduring testament to the legacy of our generation. There were a lot of other brilliant musical groups that came out. Women empowered themselves in the 60s because till then it had been a very male-dominated world. We entered a world that we wanted to change, that was changing around us, and we believed that we could change the world in our own different ways. And in some ways, we did our best, and we did. Many people of our generation made outstanding contributions. I mean, if you think about it, in those days there were no computers, there were no mobile phones, there was no television. Telephony was also at its most basic. All these things happened in the course of time, and whatever was achieved without these things, without these conveniences, without the internet, without email. Communication wasn't easy. Flying was very expensive. It's getting expensive again now, but that's another matter. But you know, each generation rises to the challenge that it sees before it. And the pace of change has changed. You know, even in your lifetimes, you've seen revolutions happen. If you look at Facebook, 800 million users. It would be the second biggest country in the world if it was a nation. YouTube has 48 hours of video uploaded every minute. Twitter, 300 million subscribers, changing the way people communicate. And all these companies have been born just 7 years ago. In your lifetimes. They didn't exist earlier. So you too have seen how revolutions can happen and how opportunities are born and how you can change the world in so many ways. You know, we have many teachers in life. Our parents are our first teachers. Then we have the teachers who teach us in school. Then we have the teachers that we find in books, in films, in plays, in wise people we meet, in people who are role models, our mentors. All these people become our teachers. But the teachers that teach you in these most formative years are the teachers that have the most profound effect on you. And I think we were all fortunate to be in institutions that molded us so beautifully. You are, all of you, so fortunate to be in institutions that are molding you so beautifully. And, let's not forget, in such a fantastic environment. The last time I came to All Saints, I walked around the dorms and I saw how beautifully, I give Kiran full credit for this, they had been painted, how beautiful the sheets were, the color schemes were, how well maintained every aspect of the school was. It's a model. It's something to hold up as an example to schools of how schools should be run. And for all of you to be here is wonderful. For all of you now to welcome us here, we are honored. Our whole class is honored. And since we're the batch of 62, before leaving, I just want to call on Bunty Bachchan, who spoke in Sherwood about why 1962 was such a special year. And I want him to repeat, whatever you can remember, of why 1962 in particular was so special. Because that will make us all feel so special.
Here you go.
Yeah? And of course, one of the very special things for that year was that Pushpinder Singh was our college captain. And we all applaud him greatly. And Bunty, over to you before Kiran continues to speak.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Kabir. I'll do my best as far as I can remember. But many historians have said that in the year 1962 was a major period in world history, and a lot of changes came in that. It was a game-changing year, and gave a lot of examples of things that happened in 1962. So to begin on a lighter note, and keeping in mind what happened here, on the very first day of the year, as a matter of fact, on the 1st of January 1962, the Beatles auditioned for Decca Records in London. And they were turned down because the producers didn't want to pay for their travel fare from Liverpool to London. And so they were turned down in favor of a local group. And that event has now been accepted to be the biggest mistake in the history of music. Also in 62, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, and the Beatles cut their first disc. And we all know that the music scene changed after that. Changing to films now, 1962 was the year of the first James Bond movie. Sean Connery, Dr. No. It set a new trend in marketing and branding. It made such a strong brand that 22 Bond films were made after that. And one of them, as we all know, our much loved and talented classmate Kabir Bedi acted in. So big hand to him for that. Coming to some serious topics now of 1962. James Meredith, a black American student, walked into the white section of the University of Mississippi. He was escorted by federal marshals and local police to enable him to attend a lecture there. It became a flashpoint in the history of America's Civil War, but it also became a turning point, because as we all know, gradually the awareness and all the action that took place during that period has eventually culminated in the US electing Barack Obama as its president. Also in 1962, in South Africa, Nelson Mandela was arrested. He was to remain in prison for 27 years under a very harsh regime of apartheid. And after he was released and democracy was restored in his country, he became the first president. So of course, the 60s or the 62s in particular was a very game-changing period. I myself experienced a little bit of apartheid in my own life because I was on board a ship as a passenger which was diverted because the Suez Canal was closed at that time. And we docked in Cape Town. We had to go around the Cape. And I wasn't allowed to disembark in Cape Town because I had an Indian passport. In due course, of course, I visited South Africa as a tourist, and everything was okay then. Coming to some technology points, for example. In 1962 again, John Glenn, the American astronaut, became the first human to circle the Earth in a NASA spaceship. He became a hero. He was a friend of President Kennedy. He became senator. But he made a very controversial statement at that time. He said no women should be allowed on a NASA mission. There was obviously some sort of uproar at that time. But for 20 years, no woman went up in an American spaceship. But gradually, the empowerment of women that was taking place enabled women to fly in these missions, including some Indian women, as you're aware. And women even commanded a couple of the space missions. Talking more about technology, 1962 was also the year that for the first time ever in the media, the following two words appear. And those words are personal computer. And now, 50 years later, they're talking about a post-PC era. It's about tablets, it's about smartphones, it's about iPads, it's about, all the things that Kabir has talked about. So you see, the world has changed, and India has changed, and in our own small way, our batch created a little bit of history in Nainital, and that is that in 1962, we had the first ever social dance between Sherwood and All Saints.
Yeah.
And times have changed so much that we now have girl students in Sherwood. So thank you, Kabir, for asking me to speak, and I hope that gives some insight into what happened in the 60s. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.